Hi everyone, welcome to part 8 of the Lord of Blights Masterclass. So we're going to keep going now, and we're getting onto some of the smaller parts of the model, so hopefully we'll go a little bit quicker. So the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to paint all of the straps on the model. So there's some leather straps, so I'm just going to thin down some black paint and we're going to black out all of the straps just with some thin paint. I've done a few already, you can see. So just go over the straps. There's some on the back there, and then there's some small straps just here on the back of the shield. Just paint those out. It doesn't have to be a solid black, it's just to give us a base coat for the browns that we're going to do afterwards. So I'll do those ones. We'll also do the dagger straps as well. And then the straps on the back of the wrist here, we'll do those too. So I'll just get those blocked in with black and then we'll come back. Okay, so all those straps are ready to be painted in now. So we're gonna keep them quite dark, I think, and we're gonna just base coat them all with dryad bark. So just do a couple of coats dryad bark over all of the straps, leaving the black that we just put on just around the edges to black line it. If you do that on all of those, so all the ones we've just done. Also, I think we'll paint this pouch the same colour as well. We do it like a cool brown, quite dark, it'll contrast with that red loincloth there. So we do that. So if you're painting all of those straps, and then we'll come back once that's done. Okay, so I've got all those straps base coated. I'll just show you which ones I've done. So we've got the one across the chest there, these ones here that are holding the shield on. There's one on the back of the head here, which is holding the mask on. So I nearly missed that. There's just a small amount of strap here and here from the front. We did the pouch as well. And there was 2 pieces of strapping just on the back of the shield, if I show you. And then there was the handle straps, and there's a small strap here as well. And then on the back of the wrist on the hammer arm as well, there's just 2 straps there. So just a base coat there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to thin down some black paint. And you can use Norn oil if you want to. I've just got some black paint here, so I'm just going to thin that down. With some water to sort of wash consistency. Then I'm just going to do one quick wash over all of those areas that we've just base coated, just to add a shade into any of those recesses before we do some highlights. So I'll go over all of those, just allow the wash to run into the recesses, and when it's dry it'll be a quick shade for you. So I'll do that over all the straps and then we'll come back. Okay, so that's the black wash done there over the dryad bark base coat. So I'm going to mix in Steel Legion drab in with the dryad bark. So it's probably about 70% dryad bark, 30% Steel Legion drab. Add a bit of water to it, and then we're going to do chunky highlights on all the straps. So pretty much covering a large area of the strap there. Just keep your paint thin. We're going to leave our shading towards those edges there. Drawing your brush towards the middle, like so. And as that's drying, you can move on to another part. So we'll do these straps as well. There won't be much to do. Really small areas. And do the same with those back straps, and then the same with the pouch. So leaving the bottom of the pouch in those shaded areas that we've just done. Keeping your paint thin, just drawing it up. Put your highlights on. So don't do that on the bottom because that'll be in shadow. Let it dry and go over it again if you want to. So we'll do that with all of those straps. I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so that highlight's done now. It's quite a subtle highlight. You can't really see a massive difference. Maybe on the pouch you can see a little bit more. But yeah, I've done that over everything, and like on the straps. It's just starting to add a bit of colour, but still keeping it quite dark. So I'm going to do the same thing again, but with just Steel Legion drab, thin down with water. So at this stage we're not edge highlighting, we're just sort of building up the transitions, sort of blending a little bit. So just drawing that brush in towards the middle again, using the Steel Legion drab. So we'll do edge highlighting a bit later when it's just needed. It's just in here. So the straps are quite small, so you won't need a lot. And then the same again with the pouch like we did earlier. Just focusing towards the top, keeping your paint thin, and leaving the bottom of the pouch with those previous layers and shades that we'd already done. So you can let that dry and then go over it again if you want to. And I'll do this on all of the straps and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so that's the Steel Legion drab highlight done now. You can see it's just started to pick out those highlights a little bit more. You can see we've got there, do it on the back of the straps a little bit, and on the dagger as well. See there, it's just at the top. So the next stage, we're going to just thin down some Zandri dust. We're going to do two things with this. So first thing we're going to do is pretty much what we've just done, which is like a thin glaze highlight towards the top areas, like so. And that's the same on everything, so like on this pouch as well. So it's glazing up the transitions with the thin paint. Then once we've done that, we'll take the paint again, keeping it thin still. But we're going to do like an edge highlight as well. So once that's done, just run your brush on the edges of the straps to pick out the edges. And I'll do that on all of the straps, go around all of them. So we'll get that done and come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so the Zandri dust highlights done now. You can see we just edge highlighted and just built up the highlights a little bit more on there. Did the same on the straps there, you can see. And then on the dagger as well. I think also at this point, sometimes it's nice, because these are like leather, you can get a bit of texture in this as well, but we don't want to repeat the same textures we've done already. So with leather strapping and things like that, sometimes they have like cracks in them. So if you can just, get in the camera, just have like the odd little line with the Zandri dust, so every now and then. Just hints that it's not a completely smooth sort of surface, and then it's cracked here and there. You do that at the top and the bottom. And it just breaks up the smoothness of it, just gives it a slight bit of texture. And do the same on this pouch as well, rather than doing like the cross hatching we did before, so it just had the odd little spot here and there, just to give it a bit of texture, just to stop it from looking so smooth. You can just add that here and there. And I'll do that on the other straps as well, just to get a little line here and there, just to break it up. It works quite well, and we'll go over those with the next highlight in a minute. Okay guys, the straps are nearly done now. You can see that we've just added that little bit of texture here and there on those straps, just breaks it up slightly, so it doesn't just look like flat paint. So they're nearly done, so we can do the last highlight now. This is probably just an edge highlight of Ushabti bone. So just leaving our previous highlights showing, concentrating on those raised areas. So just in the central part here. Very fine. That lightest highlight. Really small on the bottom. So you get the idea. So I'm going to go around all of those straps and just add a final highlight on them. And I might pick out the odd little scratch that we've done as well, just to make it feel a bit different. I'll come back when they're finished and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so straps are done now, so I'll just show you through those. So we've got the one on the chest, just the ones there that hold the shield on. We've got the pouch there that's done as well. One on the back of the head. And then we've got the ones behind the hammer. Just added those little nicks and lines there just to give it a bit of texture. As usual, there'll be photos on Instagram for you to use as reference. there on that. So we've got a couple of bits which we can do real quick. So using lead belcher, so I'm going to just have a bit of that, and we're going to paint. There's this little icon here, this little fly icon. So I'm going to paint that in lead belcher, the whole thing, and also at the same time, whilst we've got lead belcher, we're going to paint all of these spikes on the shield in lead belcher. So I'll do that. If you guys do that, and then we'll come back and we'll carry on. Okay, so I've base coated those areas in lead belcher now. So you just picked out those spikes. So if you just quickly put a coat of Norn oil over them, so over the icon and the spikes, let it run into the recesses, and then do that over the spikes as well. So just allow it just to pull around the edge of the spikes as well. And then once that's dry, we'll do the same thing but with Agrax Earthshade. So I'll do both of those and come back once that's done. Okay, so the Norn oil wash and the Agrax Earthshade wash is dry on those spikes and the metal icon now. So all we're going to do is we're just going to get a little bit of Somho Silver, and we're just going to add a very fine highlight, just sort of like on the top areas of those. Just use the flat of your brush. Just draw it towards the end of the spikes. I'll just pick those out nicely. So do that on all of those, and just add like a fine highlight on this icon here. Just don't need many, just the odd little dots to pick out those edges. So I'll do that on these, and then we'll go on to the next part. So I've just noticed here on the back of this miniature we've got a bit of spine showing there. So we'll use the Zandri dust, and we'll base coat the spine in that. And then we'll let that dry after a couple of coats. And then I'll do a highlight of Ushabti bone next. So I'll come back after that Ushabti bone highlight. Okay, so I've done the Ushabti bone on that spine area now. So I'm just going to do one highlight, quite fine, of Screaming Skull. And then once I've done that, I'll do like a dot highlight of white where it's needed. So this is Screaming Skull. So I'll highlight these areas, leaving our previous highlights showing in the areas where it's needed. And then once I've done this, I'll just have like a dot white highlight. So I'll come back once that's finished. Okay, so that's done now. So we're going to go on to the next part. So we've not had these maggots painted yet. They've been sitting there for quite a while. I've just had to Google image search pictures of maggots, and I feel a little bit queasy now. But it's helped me because the references show me that maggots can be different colours depending on what type of maggots they are. So I thought rather than just doing like a big blob of like fleshy, creamy coloured maggots, we can mix it up a little bit. So we'll leave some in this sort of pinky purpley colour, and I'm just going to pick out a few in this colour. So this is Talon Sand. So paint out some maggots in this colour. So this is like a yellowy cream colour. So leaving that sort of purple shade in between the maggots, because that can act as a natural shade for us. So I'm going to go and pick out some of those. So there's the maggots on his belly. We've got one here on the shoulder pad. There's one sitting here as well. And then there's also a couple on the gallows, which we missed out last time. So there's one there at the top. And then there's one hiding inside that cut there on the neck. So I'm going to paint all of those in. Well, paint the ones that I want in Talon Sand and then come back and show you how that looks. Okay, so I've picked out a few of those now, just leaving a few of the other ones in that sort of pinky colour. So we'll carry on with these. I've done both of these in the sort of sand colour as well, Talon Sand. So I'm going to highlight the ones that I've done in Talon Sand with Screaming Skull. So all we're going to do is just follow the lines that are sculpted, leaving the Talon Sand showing. So I'm going to go over all of these ones. And then come back in. And then once I've done those, it'll take a little bit of time. Okay, so those cream coloured maggots are highlighted there with the first stage, so we're going to do another last highlight on them with pallid witch flesh, so just thin that down, and we're just going to sort of add that highlight towards the top of each of the maggot. So don't cover up everything, just a little bit at the top there, got to be quite fine with it, just to make them a little bit paler. Like so. So I'm going to go over all of these ones, then we'll come back and we'll paint the pinky coloured ones. So that's those all highlighted now. So the ones that are left over, the sort of pinky coloured ones, so I'm just going to quickly base coat each one of those in pink horror, so leaving that shade that we already had in all of the recesses around and between the maggots. So just being careful not to go over your other maggots that you've painted. So I'm going to go over all of those before we highlight. Okay, so that's the pinky coloured maggots base coated with pink horror. So just to keep the consistency, I'm going to highlight these with a mix of pallid witch flesh and pink horror. So it's about 50-50 on the palette. So we're highlighting with the same colour as the other maggots so they don't sort of jar too much with each other. And then we're just going to go, as we did before, pick out those lines in the maggots with this mix, leaving the pink horror showing in the recesses. It's going to take a bit of time, you have to be super careful. I'm going to go over all of those ones and then come back once that's done. Okay, so that's the pink maggots there highlighted up with the first stage, so we're just going to do a final highlight of pallid witch flesh, so it's the same highlight we did with the cream coloured maggots, so you should pull them all together so they don't look too separate. So just at the tops of the maggots, just a little fine highlight, just following those lines as we did before. So I'll go over those and then come back. Okay, so that's all of those maggots highlighted up now. You can see they're not jumping out too much. We didn't want to draw too much attention to them because obviously we want to keep the focus. We're going to try and keep the focus up on the head. But before we do the next stage, which will probably be the horns, I'm going to paint in his teeth. Like, we've not done those yet. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to base coat them Xandri dust, and then I'm going to do a highlight of Screaming Skull. So using a very, very small amount of paint, I'm just going in and just picking out those teeth. They're tiny as well, so you're going to have to be very, very careful. If you make a mistake, don't worry too much. You can always go back in and neaten up. I'm just using the flat of the brush just to pick them out, might be easier. So I'm going to do the Xandri dust and then Screaming Skull. Pick those teeth out. Okay, so I've painted his teeth in there. They're quite small, we just pick them out. So we're going to paint the horns next. Like I mentioned in the planning video, we're going to paint them so they're darker on the ends here and then lighter towards the centre to pull attention towards the centre of the head. Because if they're lighter at the tips, the eye will be drawn away. So I'm going to use a Rhinox hide. I'm going to base coat pretty much all of the horns in Rhinox hide. So if you go ahead and do that, maybe like 2 thin coats, add a bit of water, go over the whole of the horn. Do that on both of them. Okay, so that's the Rhinox hide base coat done there on the horns. So now we're going to take some Doomball brown, and then we're just going to basically just leave the Rhinox hide on the ends of the horns and just paint the Doomball brown all the way to the centre of the horns. So in the end, the dark area on the end. So just keeping it thin, drawing your brush in towards the centre. So this is a broken horn on this side, so most of this is going to be this Doomball colour. So I'll do a couple of coats on this and we'll carry on. Okay, so that's the Doomball stage done now. So now we're going to move on to Scrag Brown, and we're going to start working towards the centre of the horns now by actually painting some lines in to the horns to add that texture that you see quite often on horns. So you'll see that the lines, you'll see most of them towards the bottom where it's darkest. So the centre of the horn will still be mostly brown, so we'll just paint that in and then just pull the lines down so that they fall into the area where we painted the Doomball brown, like so. I'm going to go over these horns and paint those lines in and then show you how it looks. Okay, so that's the Scrag brown stage done. So I'm going to carry on and use Balor brown. So this is quite a yellowy brown, and it's quite a jumping sort of highlight stage as well. So using the tip of your brush, just paint those lines in again, going inside the ones you've already done, concentrating on making it lighter towards the centre. Just keep going over. We'll paint those lines in the horns. Just like so. So I'm going to go over the horns and add those lines in with Balor brown now. Okay, so that's the Balor brown stage done. You can see that we've started adding those line texture into the horns. So we'll repeat the process now with Ushabti bone. So keeping that thin, working towards the centre. So we've got the lighter end of the horns towards the middle. Just going inside those lines that we already painted. Being careful. All the way down. So focus on towards the middle of the centre of the horns now, and keep going and show you what that looks like. So we're going to leave these areas dark down the bottom. Okay, so that's the Screaming Skull stage done now. You can really see that the horns are getting lighter towards the centre, and it's drawing the attention to the face a lot more than if it was the other way around. So we're going to go in with some white now, right in the centre. Just going over those lines again with the white. So we'll do that over all of those ones, just towards the centre. We'll come back once that's done. Okay, so we've got the horns lightened up now towards the centre. So you can really see it's pulling the focus into the centre of the head rather than away from the head. So I've just mixed a little bit of black in with Rhinox hide, and I've just thinned that down to make it into a wash consistency. And I'm just going to paint that on the very tips, just glaze it down on the very tips of the horns. And what I'll do is there's some cracks on this side, so I'll just paint it into there as well to pick out those where the horn's broken. Just like so. And then we'll carry on. What we'll do is we'll just get a little bit of that. We'll use some Screaming Skull. Thin it down. So these horns can be quite shiny, so we'll give it a little bit of an effect. So just on the edge here. Pour some Screaming Skull down. Just give it a little bit of a sort of impression of a shine there on that piece. And then just picking out the end of the horns. A little bit of Screaming Skull as well. And I'll do the same on the other side, and we'll come back and show you how that looks. Okay, so that's the horns pretty much highlighted and shaded there. You can see we've got that sort of textured effect going on. They're a little bit scratchy in places, so we'll do the old Lamia medium trick. So we just paint one coat of Lamia medium over all of the horns, just to smooth out all those colours together. give it the same finish. And then we'll call those horns done. Okay, so the horns are done. So the laminar mediums are still drying on those. But I think what we've got now is every area pretty much painted on all the separate pieces. So what I want to do next is assemble the model. So we're going to, in the next episode, we're going to take all of these pieces off the props, clean them, assemble the model, and then we're going to balance the miniature then. So like I said at the start, in the skin masterclass and the armor one, we'll probably go back to them later once we've assembled the model, just to tweak some of the contrasts and some of the colours and things like that. So I think the next episode is going to be assembling the model, balancing the model out, just doing final tweaks before we go on to basing him. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers, bye.